Hi everybody, today we've got a 2024 matchup between Gretchen Whitmer and Sarah Sanders, and this is another one suggested to me in the comments. So we've got the governors of Michigan and Arkansas. Who's going to win it? Let's find out. Sanders just got into office this year. She's got a little bit of a track record, not a ton. She's probably popular enough for her state. Of course, she's well known with her background working in the Trump administration and being the daughter of former Governor Mike Huckabee. Gretchen Whitmer, she won re-election pretty comfortably in the midterms. Seems reasonably popular as well. There's speculation about her running at some point, maybe as a running mate, but it's safe to say she's probably going to do better in the Rust Belt, given she's right in the midst of it in Michigan, just like Sarah Sanders is probably going to do better in the South. Now, when it comes to personality or charisma, my view is I think both of these two are very similar, and I'm not really big on either of their personalities, but I think the general electorate has a more favorable view than I do. I think Whitmer and Sanders, they both have their own regional accents, and I also don't really think they're that energizing or convincing, but I understand that might just be me. I'm sure Sanders does excite the Trump base. Whitmer certainly is going to excite the establishment Democrats. Progressives, probably not so much. And then we have to wonder how many voters in the middle might see Sanders as too close to Donald Trump, and they might be reluctant to support her campaign. So those are some things to consider. Let's get started here in Alaska. That I think will be double digits, probably low double digits, but safe for Sanders. Hawaii, very safe for Whitmer. Back up to the West Coast now. Washington, Oregon, and California, easy call, safe for Whitmer. Now we've got Nevada. This is a competitive state. I think it would definitely be within a few points either way. I think in this matchup, the state would still favor the Democrat, Whitmer. It's close enough to where I could be wrong and Sanders could still win it, but I do have it going to Whitmer by a 1 to 2 point lean margin. Idaho and Utah, safe for Sanders. Now we've got Arizona, the state that used to be red, but it keeps on slipping away from the Republicans. Sarah Sanders probably could keep it in the Republican column. I know voters in suburban Maricopa, probably a lot of them are done with the Republicans, but I think there's still enough GOP voters in the state that it could go back to its traditional partisan lean, and outside of a blue wave, I think Sanders could narrowly carry it, and I have it going to her by a tilt margin. Montana, Wyoming, safe for Sanders. Colorado, safe for Whitmer. New Mexico, likely for Whitmer. Up to North and South Dakota now, those are going to be safe for Sanders. Nebraska at large, safe for Sanders. The 2nd District, that's an uphill climb for Republicans these days. Even though it got slightly redder since redistricting, I think Whitmer would carry this by at least 1 point, maybe even 3 or 3.5, so it's going to be leans for Whitmer. Kansas and Oklahoma, safe for Sanders. Texas is still going to be over 5, likely for Sanders. Now we've got Minnesota. That's going to be likely for Whitmer. Iowa, I think, will be over 5 for Sanders. Missouri, safe for Sanders. Her home state of Arkansas, of course, very safe for Sanders. Louisiana, safe for Sanders. Now let's go up to Wisconsin. Gretchen Whitmer is from neighboring Michigan. It's probably going to help her a little bit in a state like Wisconsin. I don't think Sarah Sanders would wipe out here, but I think a little bit more of the suburban voters, and of course voters in Dane and Milwaukee, they're coming out huge for Whitmer, and I do think the state would go for Whitmer, probably by a 1.5 up to 2, so it's leads for Whitmer. Illinois, safe for Whitmer. How about Whitmer's home state of Michigan? Of course she's going to win that. I don't think it would hit 10 points, but it is going to be over 5, likely for Whitmer. Indiana will still be over 10, safe for Sanders. Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, safe for Sanders. Now we've got Florida. This was a tough call. I have it going to Sanders. I couldn't decide between lean and likely. I think it would be 4.5, close to 5, but I kept it at leans for Sanders. Now one state north, Georgia. This is similar to Arizona. Used to be an easy state for the Republicans. They've kind of collapsed in the Atlanta suburbs, but then we have someone like Brian Kemp, who easily won re-election in the midterms, and it is a southern state. Sanders could do a little bit better here than some other Republicans. It's a tough call. The trends are against the Republicans. The rural turnout would probably be pretty well for Sanders. In the end, I did set on a tilt for Sanders. South Carolina, safe for Sanders. North Carolina, it's usually lean for the Republican, and I think it's going to be the same this time, anywhere from 1 to 4 points for Sanders. Now we've got Ohio. That does border Michigan. Maybe Whitmer does a point or two better, but this state is far redder than Michigan, and it is going to go likely for Sanders. West Virginia, safe for Sanders. Let's go to Maine at large. That's going to be likely for Whitmer. The 1st District, safe for Whitmer. The 2nd District, just over 5 points, maybe 6, likely for Sanders. New Hampshire, that's probably going to be just over 5, 5.5, likely for Whitmer. Vermont, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and Washington, D.C., safe for Whitmer. Now we've got Pennsylvania. It's a Rust Belt state. In this matchup, it is going to go for Whitmer, probably by a 2 to 3 point lean margin. The last state is Virginia. Virginia, that's going to be over 5, likely for Whitmer. So the final total is 276 for Whitmer, 262 for Sanders. Whitmer pulls out a win. It's not overwhelming, but I do think she'd be favored. I said a lot at the beginning. I don't necessarily think they're the most relatable people, and I'm not really factoring in the accent. I just don't see there being an overwhelming amount of connection with the working class and over enough different types of issues. Of course, Whitmer, she's going to go all in on abortion. I think she'd probably go too far with it. There's plenty of other issues out there. Some of the cultural stuff, Sarah Sanders, she's going to be stronger on. On economics, I think progressives are going to be disappointed with both of these candidates. They want to hear about getting health care to everybody. They want to hear about climate, minimum wage. And Gretchen Whitmer, I don't think has delivered enough for those types of voters. She would probably talk about it, but I do think Whitmer has more of a track record, so she really doesn't have any excuses for not being progressive enough for the base. Sanders, I think, would do better with the Trump base, but the economic appeal in the Rust Belt and a lot of the suburbs, probably not going to be there. Of course, on some economic issues, the Republicans are a little bit better, but on a lot of populist economics, the Democrats, they're going to be a little bit better, certainly for talking about it, actually delivering the goods. That's another topic entirely. So this is a close one. You could emphasize different things to change some of these margins, maybe flip a couple of these states, but this is the way I see it going. Of course, it depends on what's happening in the country at the time. It depends how these two run their campaigns. And of course, both of these candidates are going to have to navigate different paths on issues like abortion, guns, identity politics, immigration, taxes, etc. So all that could affect some of these states one way or the other, but I see Whitmer as being the stronger candidate. Let me know in the comments, do you agree with this map? If not, which states would you change? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.